Thank you. No. I'm going gray, white, some bronze. But you absolutely get dressed up for you guys. Well, we wouldn't want to be dressed the wrong way, right? Oh, Lisa, what is it?
If you folks wouldn't mind signing in over in the corner. There's a little signage. It's good to get you in.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, please, seriously.
No.
We got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Good night, sir.
All right, let's call this village council meeting to order. If I could have a roll call, please.
Certainly. Wales,
Here.
Bishop,
Here.
Dunham, here, Larson.
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Needham,
Yes, here.
White.
Here.
Excellent. We could all stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seeking approval of the regular agenda.
So moved.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the consent agenda. Board members can request certain items to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. A motion is then in order to adopt all items not removed. After that motion is passed, discussion will occur on those items previously selected for removal. Seeking that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Any opposed? Thank you. At this time, we have a brief public comments. If you would care to make a comment, state your name, place of residence, disclose any financial relationship with the village, and direct the comments towards myself, and limit it to 3 minutes or less. Do we have any public comment this evening? Moving on, we have some presentations this evening. First up is the Kalkaska County Commission on Aging Millage Renewal. Podium, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Anderson. I am on the Commission on Aging Advisory Board, and I've been asked to give you a brief presentation tonight on the millage renewal that's going to be on the ballot on August 3rd. And just a few things to know about the Commission on Aging. If you haven't been at the Senior Center recently, it is quite the hub for the whole county, but especially for the village of Kalkaska. I actually have the easiest presentation to give. Some of the townships that are a little farther outlying don't probably see the benefit as much as the village does. I will leave these pamphlets about the millage renewal over here on this table for anybody who wants one, but just a couple of facts here. There were 19,709 congregate meals, site meals prepared this year, and that was during COVID when they were shut down a good part of the time. Home delivered meals were 38,234. In-home services, 1,021, transportation, 909, senior activities, 2,920, and public transportation, 4,174. Based on census projections, there are 5,182 individuals over the age of 60 in Kalkaska County, representing 29% of our total population. The 60-plus population is the fastest growing population for Kalkaska County. This demonstrates the huge need for the millage renewal because these services are extremely necessary for our population here. A recent survey of older adults living in Kalkaska found that 84% of respondents are concerned about maintaining their health. 63% are concerned about being able to live at home as they grow older. Many survey respondents, particularly those who live alone, indicate that they have difficulty preparing meals, cleaning the house, getting dressed, and bathing. Less than half of those surveyed actively move about each day or eat fruits and vegetables each day. Kalkaska COA provides older adults with healthy meals, engaging activities, opportunities for movement and exercise, and support to live independently at home. Some of the other services that you might not even know that the COA provides have to do with technology services. I think all of us probably has an older relative that are a bit stymied using their computer or their phone or whatever. I know my own mother, when she calls me, I tell her to grab the nearest 14-year-old if she can find one. Not everybody can figure those things out, so they do provide those kinds of helpful services. They also provide things like they have an attorney who comes quarterly to sit down and talk to people about wills and living trusts. They have a weekly grief support system that is very active. A lot of these services are things that people could not afford on their own, such as the grief counseling. That's very important. So that's pretty much it. Make sure you all vote on August 3rd. I believe it's the only thing on the ballot, so it will be easy and quick to get in and out. And I will leave all these pamphlets over here on the table.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Yeah.
Up next presentation, would you care to introduce, sir?
I will. Good evening. I'm Scott Yelston, Village Manager. I've said recently a few times that from my perspective as manager, I can see that significant new business development is already well underway here in Kalkaska. It's very robust. It's already happening. And I believe our focus should now be on housing. We need housing for people who work in the many new jobs that are created here and the folks that want to live here. And there are several components to this effort. Demolishing blighted properties, freeing up buildable lots is one component. Working with developers and builders is another. But time is short and we need to work as efficiently as possible. And one way to do that is to seek the advice of experts. And one such expert is Yarrow Brown of Housing North. President Wales and I met with Ms. Brown last week. We invited her to this meeting tonight to speak with all of us. And I introduced to you Ms. Yarrow Brown of Housing North.
I'm going to just set these cards and that little sticker here. So thanks for having me today. I'm going to give just a little overview of Housing North, who we are, what we're doing, and then some of the ways that we can help in your community So we were formed about 3 years ago with a partnership with Networks Northwest, covering the 10 counties of our region, and we also have funding through Rotary Charities of Traverse City and the Pride Foundation. So we were formed basically to address the barriers of housing in our 10-county region through awareness, advocacy, and capacity and resources. So I'll talk about those 3 things briefly. In 2019, we did a target market analysis to look at what the demand for housing was in our 10-county region. That showed that our region could support over 15,000 units over the next 5 years for those people currently living and working here, or for people who would move here to find jobs and place to live. In Kalkaska County, it showed that the need for housing was 492 rental units. Now, these are approximate estimations, and this was all numbers that we had derived pre-COVID, so we anticipate the need to be even greater. And for home ownership units, the estimate in the county was for 288 ownership units. In the city of Kalkaska alone, the target market study showed a need for 214 more rental units and 67 home ownership units. Right now, we're have a call to action through our public awareness campaign called Homes for Our Future, which is the sticker that I just sent around, and it is really just a public awareness campaign, but we're going around to as many communities, organizations, and units of government to help make our communities more housing ready. So we have a toolkit that is on our website, a communication toolkit, so we're all talking about housing and the resources and the need using the same language. And we also have a guidance that is basically a housing ready checklist that we encourage every community to go through and adopt and see ways they can make their zoning and their community more housing friendly. Those are all on our website. We have 2 websites, one for Homes for Our Future, the public awareness campaign, as well as housingnorth.org. So if you type those in, you should be able to find any of these resources. So far, we have about 8 units of government that have endorsed the campaign and over 30 organizations. So we're asking the village of Kalkaska to consider endorsing the campaign, which basically says you're committed to making your community housing ready and working towards the action steps that would follow. I did give an example resolution, and they're available on our website as well. The other thing we're working on are policy initiatives. So one of the main reasons we were formed was so that we could advocate directly for housing issues at the state and the local level. So last year we formed an executive committee that helped form what's called the Housing Michigan Coalition. So it's a bipartisan group of organizations that support housing changes that can help bring more housing resources to our community, specifically in Northwest Michigan, but across the state. If you I can email the link, or you can just type in Housing Michigan Coalition and you can sign up to get updates, and you can also join the coalition if you want. Some of the initiatives that we're working on include pilots for payment in lieu of taxes that would be local units of government could adopt, not requiring state or federal subsidy. There's also one that includes the expansion of neighborhood enterprise zones, and some that include an employer housing tax credit. So if employers did want to invest in housing, they could get an income tax credit for their investment. So it's a nonpartisan group, and our shared challenge is that there are many reasons that we have a housing gap. There's no silver bullet to solve this, and we all need changes in policy, attitudes, and incentives on multiple fronts for housing. The other thing I'll talk about briefly is capacity. So Housing North is trying to raise capacity for housing, both in staff, technical staff on the ground in each of our 10 counties, as well as raising capacity and resources for housing through a housing fund or other grants and opportunities and philanthropy, so we can help spur on more development and make it easier. The Housing Ready program, we have 1 full-time employee in Charlevoix County, and that's a coordinated effort to the Community Foundation, the Thrive Foundation, and 4 units of government that support a full-time position for 3 years. We're also fundraising for this position in Emmett County and hope to bring it full-time in the next couple months. And then we have 3 or 4 other counties that are interested in this as well. So the reason we have Housing Ready people is so you have technical staff on the ground working in your community to help focus on all things housing. We also have a webinar on our YouTube channel. It's an hour long. If you want to listen to it and learn more about the Housing Ready program. And then the last thing I'll just touch on are some different tools in the toolbox that we're working on that can help bring more capacity for housing. And those involve a land bank partnership, so working with the state, or if you have a county land bank, to help support development and partnership opportunities for housing. We also have a deed restriction program that we piloted in the city of Charlevoix, which is specifically to enforce or have opportunities for year-round workforce housing so that they don't get converted to short-term rentals. That was a goal specifically of the city of Charlevoix, but other communities are looking at that as well. And more recently, there's a new tool that came down, which I'm not an expert on yet, but we can bring experts to talk about it, which is using the land bank. We're calling it Land Bank 2.0, where you can use the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and Act 381 and basically subsidize the gap in housing through tax incremental financing. So that's a tool we can bring to your community and bring experts to help facilitate that tool. So there's a lot more I could talk about. Other things that, include missing middle zoning changes and ways that you can basically incentivize development to happen in your community. Bring those tools to your attention and let you know that Housing North is here for technical support, fundraising support, and to be a resource in your community. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And again, our website is housingnorth.org, and all of my contact information is on there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ms. White. Very informative, talking to you the other day, and then following through and going to the website and seeing the study that was done, really drove home the need that we had. And the study was in 2019. In that time, since 2019, the hospitals had a huge expansion. We've had a huge expansion in the industry. Brought probably 400 jobs into town. So that has only exponentially increased since then. And I thank you for that presentation. Do you have anything more to say, sir? Moving on to the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee met today at 5 o'clock. We went over the current invoices, payroll reconciliations, monthly payroll journal entries, and reconciliations. And we would make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $115,974.46. And the invoiced amount was $209,821.33.
Motion. Second, anyone? Second.
Or where's the-
I'll second.
Yeah, sorry, I'll second. Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham, yeah. Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We also reviewed the budget amendments, 6, 7, and 8 for the fiscal year ending 2/28/22. And we recommend to the village that we accept those budget amendments.
Everybody has those in your packets. Why don't we accomplish those now and skip ahead to those? So if we want to move down to new business on D, we'll skip ahead to the adoption of resolution 2021-025. That's budget amendment number 6. If I can get a motion for
I'll make
that.
the motion.
Motion,
Support.
motion and support. And a roll call, please.
Dunham, Larson. Larson,
Sorry, yes.
thank you. Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Carries.
And F, consider adoption of resolution 2021-026, budget amendment number 7.
I'll make the motion.
Motion second,
I'll second.
motion and second, and a roll call if you would. And if anybody wants to discuss any of these risk questions, feel free to speak up. I think we all know what's going on.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham, yes. Wales.
Yes.
Carries.
And G, consider adoption of resolution 2021-027, budget amendment number 8.
I would vote to approve.
Motion second,
I'll second.
any questions?
Did we discuss at the last meeting of getting the, not doing these meeting by meeting to increase this to the pavilion circle uses?
We did.
I don't remember if I don't know.
And we're gonna have a few resolutions coming up for other budget amendments, so as we have them on, we'll just go to the, as we go, but not having this session.
Okay.
Any other questions? Roll call on it, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham, yes. Larson,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Back to you, Ms. Miller.
That concludes our finance committee.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Reports from other committees, the 5-year Village of Kalkaska Master Plan Financial Committee.
Yes, so trustee Larson and I met on May 19th at 6. And we reviewed a draft spreadsheet organizing the most recent 4 years of the sewer budget data in new categories, including sewer user fees, sewer grants, sewer other revenues, DPW labor costs, admin labor costs, property management and administrative supplies, operations, capital project and debt. And our next step is to create qualitative profiles of each year.
Any questions from the Senate?
I'm busy.
Personnel Committee.
Okay, we got myself, Harley, Robert Bishop on the 26th of May. We are doing negotiations right now with the Village Police Department, Safety Department. And at this time, we have no recommendation because we're still doing negotiations. We have another meeting coming up this Thursday. But right now, I see it going very well. We should have this done well before it's time to renew.
Nice to be done ahead of time, isn't it? Reports from village officers. Police report, please.
Is I'll have the monthly stats. Nothing really new, but as you leave, if you walk out the east doors here, our new Durango, our first Durango is here, sitting out front if you'd like to take a peek at that, when we're all done. Officer Nagy did a great job getting that ordered and designed and outfitted. That's an officer, sorry. Sergeant Nagy, I apologize.
We were talking about this before, and I remember when the police reports were only 1 page long on one side. This one's what, 4 pages on 2 sides?
And I'd like to see the letter on the front. The sheriff, thanking our officers for participating in the Polonius assault. That the complaint was taken by them and assisted by our officers, and that cooperation is needed.
And we actually have both officers here right now.
Oh, that would be a nice thing.
Pretty awesome.
So I know we're gonna recognize Officer Clark here in a minute, but Reserve Officer Stevens is also here, who also participated in that.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Nice to see things like that. Cooperation is amazing. Any questions for the officers? Move on to your report, sir.
Very good. Good evening, President, Council, and audience. Next on my list is to introduce the concept of well 6. We haven't talked about this to this point. It's on my list prior to my retirement to add a high-capacity water well to our system. And adding a high-capacity water well would provide a needed backup. You might ask what for. It would provide a needed backup to existing wells that were drilled in the 1990s. They're probably about half the way through their service life, but still they're not kids anymore. They're entering the mid phase of their lives. It also would provide higher flows during emergencies such as fires, and it would future-proof our water system, which I think would be critical. I'll be sharing more information with you as time passes. I have invited DEQ representatives to our all boards meeting on the 21st, 1 week from today, 5 p.m. I'm sure the president will mention that again, to share their perspective regarding the water well in addition. But we'll talk about this more in the next months. 404 South Cherry, it's moving closer to becoming the Cherry Street Pocket Park, or as it's now being called, the Toddler Park. For kids in that age group and their parents, you might recall the renovation estimates for the house that's on the site approached $400,000, and that was before the building materials market skyrocketed. Park design process is involving the folks that will use it, the families with young children and their parents, and of course, Parks and Rec Committee. And good news, I think I mentioned this already, but we found a donor and they contacted me last week, moving ahead rapidly with seeking donations to hopefully pay for demolition of the structure that's on site and maybe some of the park, knock on wood. Page 2. As you know, we're leading the formation of a fire authority with the township. Whether we become a city or remain a village, in my view, we need a contract between the village and the township for fire service In my view, also, every well-formed business relationship benefits from a written record of its terms, and none currently exists. I'd like to thank Councilmember Bishop for placing flags on such short notice for Officer Peacock's funeral a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much, Mr. Bishop. We appreciate that. Thank you for all the flags that you put out, especially the ones in front of the village office this evening on Flag Day. Remember, mark your calendars, June 18th and 19th, drag races, and this year a car show courtesy of 258 Tire at our airport on Island Lake Road. Both June 18 and 19, and then August as well. And Mr. Stevens, you're here this evening, 258 representing 258 Tire, also a reserve officer with our department. He wears several hats in the community. When's the August race? Do you recall the dates?
I don't have the exact dates there. It's
Mid-month, right?
mid-month, correct.
So we'll mention that again, and the car show, if you want to talk about that at all.
It's going to be a great event. So we did the first annual car show at 258 Tire there. And the first year it outgrew itself. We had 150 entries last year of car shows, and over 2,000 people showed up. So we totally filled American Waste, which is Green for Life now, their parking lot with spectators. And so we're teaming up with Bill Garrock there, Cunningham Electric, and he's doing his drag races, and he's done a lot of work over there, and the village has done a lot of work to make it all nice and clean and mowed. And so we planned on putting the two together and making it one big event for Kalkaska and see if we can bring quite a bit of money to our town and help our little businesses out. So
And the drag race and then the car show are both popular with the community. So
they are.
good. Thank you very much. So other airport news. Last Wednesday, you might have heard it, we had a Stage 47 Chinook from Selfridge Air Force Base, Air Base, visiting the airport. It's also known as the Chinook. It's a dual rotor heavy lift helicopter, somewhere in the range of probably 10 or 12 tons it can hoist. Been in service since the 1960s and still going strong. And they asked to make a stop as they passed through the airspace. And of course, the airport manager, assistant airport manager said, welcome. And we'll share some photos of that, perhaps a video even at the next meeting. So now to borrow from Paul Harvey, we'll move on to page 3. Next, I want to conduct a brief ceremony of recognition. And I ask that you treat this in a respectful and solemn manner. At the last meeting, I asked, did you know that we have several Department of Public Safety employees who lead a second life serving in our nation's armed forces? One is Officer Scott Clark, recently promoted to Staff Sergeant in a ceremony at the Grayling National Guard Base, and the other is Officer Kylie Argyle. I will start with Officer Argyle. Officer Argyle, please come forward. We all know this individual as Department of Public Safety Police Officer Kylie Argyle. But in the United States Air Force, Michigan Air National Guard, her other life, she is known as and addressed as Staff Sergeant Argyle. Staff Sergeant Argyle has been in the military for 7.5 years and has attained the rank of E5. She served in the military police and now moved providing critical support services. Staff Sergeant Argyle will be deploying soon in a matter of just a couple of weeks. She'll be at a location that I'm not at liberty to share, about 10 or so time zones away from Michigan, and she'll be doing her job there for 6 months. That is quite a commitment to make, and she does it of her own free will. I want you to put yourself in her shoes and ponder that level of commitment for a moment. I present to you United States Air Force, Michigan Air National Guard Staff Sergeant Kylie Argyle. Moving on, Department of Public Safety Police Officer Scott Clark. Officer Clark, please come forward. This man, the man we know as Police Officer Clark, has served our nation for 13 years, since 2008, in the United States Army, Michigan Army National Guard. In the Army, Police Officer Clark is known as and addressed as Staff Sergeant Clark. He was recently promoted to a rank of E6, and more on that in a moment. During that promotion ceremony, his wife Mandy and 10-year-old daughter Kinsey got to pin him, which is quite an honor in itself. Some background might make all of this jargon and technical terms more understandable, and we'll use Sergeant Clark, Staff Sergeant Clark, as our example. Staff Sergeant Clark is considered a senior non-commissioned officer, an NCO, and an E6, which means with his next rank promotion, he will ascend to First Sergeant and E7. And there are only 2 slots above that in the enlisted ranks. Take a moment to grasp that. Michigan Air National Guard Staff Sergeant Argyle will be eligible also for promotion to rank E6 when she returns from her own deployment. In other words, you know both of them as a young man and a young woman, already with significant responsibilities here at the Kalkaska Department of Public Safety, but now you know also in our nation's armed forces. What's more, with future promotions, they will both enter the ranks of NCOs, who are very few in number. I present to you United States Army, Michigan Army National Guard Staff Sergeant Scott Clark. So now you know. You're forgiven if you knew not before. It's not your fault because neither of them seek recognition. They just quietly go about their business, serving even when that means the demands of a second life. Photos of both staff sergeants are displaying on the TV behind us. We'll have a brief reception immediately following tonight's meeting where you can congratulate Staff Sergeant Argyle and Staff Sergeant Clark and their families yourself. Before I close, I want to point out that Officer Clark had a 10-month National Guard deployment in 2019, and that commitment meant significantly more than 10 months away from his home and family. Keep in mind, it's the spouses and children who stay behind on deployments who hold together the world that allows men like Staff Sergeant Clark and women like Staff Sergeant Argyle to do their jobs. I mention this so you don't forget to thank and congratulate their families too. I would like their families to rise briefly so we know who you are. Families, please. President, do you have anything to add, sir?
I have a bit of emotion going, but I'll try. It is an honor to have you both on our board here. Deep honor. And I thank you both.
Well done, carry on.
Thank
President? There'll be a brief reception following the meeting, and Mr. President, with that, I conclude my manager's report.
I thank you for that, sir, and certainly thank the officers for their service. For my report, I want to focus on the next Monday, the 21st. We're going to be at the pavilions, and we're going to have an all boards meeting, bringing together the DDA, the Brownfield, our board, and have other representatives there. There's a few hot topic items that we'll be talking about: the village to city transition, forming of the fire authority, the new well, and its importance, as well as getting reports from different committees on the DDA, what's going on with the farmers market, best farmers market ever, what we've been doing here at the village, what the accomplishments have been from the planning commission over the last couple of busy years, and what that has entailed. And I invite the community to all come and attend. Everybody got an invitation on their water bill, so everybody knows what's going on, and I certainly hope for a great turnout so that everybody can be brought up to speed in an open and honest fashion. You got it, sir.
Would you like me to challenge Staff Sergeants to a push-up contest?
I don't think that. I think they've done enough,
I
really.
think you probably noticed that. on
And they
the
would probably
side.
challenge you right back, so.
Oh, they wouldn't win.
All right, let's move along. Consider.
Trying to get you out of this hole.
Yeah, they would.
Go
I'll
ahead.
sit on his
Consider
back.
recommendation.
Yeah, I love that.
The taser one?
Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I gotta see. Okay. Consider recommendation from the planning commission to appoint Ryan Kelly to the vacancy on the board. You have your applications in the packet. Would there be a motion to accept?
So move.
Motion, second, and support. All those in favor? Yes? Any opposed? Excellent. Consider recommendation from planning commission to appoint Cody Day.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Motion and support, no grilling for Mr. Day. We already grilled him once. All those in favor? Any opposed? Congratulations. We don't need any motions. We have the new committee appointments with the change in council. Those are in your packet for your review. I did change things up a bit and also enhance the blight renewal committee to include village housing development. As the manager stated, we kind of had a plan in place to purchase blighted properties within the village, demolish, and then level the ground so it would be available to resell to somebody willing to put a home on that property. And with the enhancement of Ms. Carol Brown and her help, we hope to expand upon that housing development to hopefully accomplish the goals that we now know we have with the 300-ish families we need to find a spot for.
Are you taking questions?
Would you have questions?
Yes, I was wondering why you removed the 5-year village master financial plan.
I think that really is more of something that we should do on an annual basis with the budget when we're looking at that, and not really put all of our time into it in the meantime as a committee. And the budget team for that long-term goal is really more of what the office staff and the treasurer do, and not really that for a committee, I believe.
So the committee originated during the last budget session. When I was requesting further documentation showing plans beyond just the upcoming fiscal year. So would, I'm sorry, you called it a focus at the, how did you look at it?
Usually when we do our, like the budget workshops that we do leading up to the budget, we'll look at previous budgets, future budgets, we'll get the capital improvement plan, what we have promised out towards that, in reference to the master plan, and kind of see where that scope is going. But as far as trying to pinpoint where things are going to be, like this year with the influx that we've had in the budget, it's really kind of hard to point to what 5 years from now is going to look like. And I think that it's great to say and to get a grasp on it. We all have that responsibility. But as far as a committee doing that, I think that should be something that everybody individually does, and not just a committee to bring back information. But I think we should all be studying on an individual basis, past budgets, how they've worked, what the ebb and flow is with the budget, and different expenditures. And your flow questions can still continue, because I know you have lots of questions. But I really want the focus of the committees that I form to go in a certain direction, and that's not the direction you're going.
So despite the difficulty and the challenges, are you saying, looking at the committees that you have here, that 5-year planning is not a priority?
Correct.
And what would be the best way, because I am still going to ask those questions that I submitted, what is the best way to get answers to those questions?
Here's that.
because I've sent emails for the past few weeks and haven't received a response.
I apologize. Since you're-
Something that I've said before, and I'd like to reiterate it, is I still think we need to do occasionally, even if it's quarterly or semi-annual budget workshops. I think we need to do those more often as a board, because the finance committee handles so many of those things that we look at in 1,000 pages that we have to look at. And it sometimes there's some questions that we miss because they're so limited. So maybe that would help some of Elizabeth's questions too, as they arise, if we have a budget workshop like every quarter, even every 6 months, so that we're all caught up to date on where things
Quarterly, I
are.
think would be a
Yeah,
good idea.
I like
Is
the
that
idea.
something
I mean, we could even maybe do
facilitate
it,
going on the agenda?
we could even maybe do it before a board meeting one night.
I think that would also help when we get to those budget workshops to kind of have a grasp of how things are trending.
I would
Right
appreciate
now,
it.
they're really trending up and we're doing great, but that may not continue forever and ever. And as we bring on more staff and certainly increase the department, we need to make sure that we can maintain those numbers and that it's sustainable. So I think that's an excellent.
And hopefully that'll be the perfect place to ask all our questions and get our
It
answers.
should be, and then we should be able to have the treasurer there as well, maybe actively taking part.
That would be, I would like that. I'd appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that would be.
Thank you.
Can you get that happen for us?
Is one that implemented into the 2 monthly meetings or an additional?
Into the monthly meeting, maybe even as like a form of a presentation. Because I know manager tries to keep us up to date with what's going on, but it would be nice to have also a treasurer update, maybe in the presentation on a quarterly basis.
Well, and maybe we can look at that at the time too, because maybe even do it like at 5:30, where we have a half an hour, where we don't want to take half an hour probably out of the meeting, but we can look at it, see how it goes.
Right, and I would want part of the monthly meeting, so we want to adjust the agenda to an earlier time for that, so people that just wanted to get a grasp on the budget, and what was going on, could attend maybe prior to.
Thank you.
But that would not have to be an announcement.
Thank you.
I have one more question. As to why the assignments are so lopsided. I've gone from 5 committees to 2, and I know that trustee Larson's gone from 2 to 0.
What would you like? Are there other ones that you would like? You can send an email and make that request. Everybody have to consider.
Okay.
If there's certain ones that you would like to be on.
The packet confused me because we had done that reshuffling in December. So I was kind of surprised that there was something I didn't realize that I needed to. Anyway.
Well, just like we did last time, after the shuffle, probably wanted to have more, so we reshuffled them again. We certainly can cover that again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other discussion? We will move on to D, consider adoption of resolution 2021-024, amendments to the village fee schedule. Amendments would be in red.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-24.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Anybody have any questions?
I think that
Go ahead.
it looks like we're changing the consumption charge to 165 per 1,000 gallons.
That actually had already been changed, it went into effect in that, annual increase that is effective every March 1st, but I didn't realize that fee schedule made another mention of the consumption of.
Well, I just noticed another place in that same area where it says 163, and I didn't know if that needed to also be updated. Please.
Good catch.
Yes, thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner, we have a roll call for that.
Yes.
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham. Yes. Larson.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to H. Would you like to review this?
I would.
Finance chair.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to consider resolution 2021-028, endorsement of homes for our future campaign.
Motion.
Yes, yes. Another 10,000. Yes, to give.
I'll support it.
Motion and support.
Is that Nathan?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick yours. I have a question. It says the 2020-2021 budget year. Is that supposed to be 2021-2022?
It should be 21, 22.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I make my motion with that amendment.
Yes.
And just so everybody knows, this states, whereas a local knowledge and a 2019 market analysis points to a demand in Kalkaska for housing of all types. And whereas national studies have shown development and housing supply to be constrained by rising costs of construction, changes in the market, and the labor shortage. And whereas the imbalance between supply and demand is impacting our community's ability to provide housing for young families, seniors, and the workforce, which is affecting the sustainability and growth opportunities of local businesses and schools. And whereas lack of adequate housing has been shown to have serious impacts on health, access to opportunity, and achievement levels of individuals, particularly vulnerable populations like children and seniors. And whereas Housing North is advancing a campaign to raise awareness and support for housing solutions, such as the consideration and adoption of common sense local policies and practices that will increase the supply of housing in our community and advancement at the state level of policies that expand and improve access to housing resources for all communities. And whereas these efforts will create new private investment, jobs, and revenue in the form of construction, rehabilitation, management and maintenance, and tax revenue. And whereas community organizations and businesses are important advocates and champions for encouraging local action on a local, statewide, and federal housing initiative and proposals. Therefore, it would be resolved that the Village of Kalkaska endorses the Homes for Our Future campaign and expresses our support for efforts to create new housing options that ensure our communities remain places where all people can live, work, raise families, and thrive. And be it further resolved that the Village of Kalkaska dedicates $10,000 from the 2021-2022 budget year to Housing North. With that said, anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I think it's something we need to do. We've got a lot of businesses coming in town with no place, people with no place to live. And why should we let them pay their taxes and spend their money in another village? We need to get this done.
It's really become
It's getting crucial.
quite a stretch from, 5 or 10 years ago when housing wasn't an issue. And the fear was that Kalkaska was going to become the bedroom community for Traverse City. And people were going to live here and then work over in Traverse. And it's become quite the opposite. We now have people driving 45 minutes an hour to come to work in Kalkaska because they can't find any housing.
And you can't find it anywhere else either.
No, you can't. It's a need that needs to be met.
And we need help with it. I mean, none of us are qualified to start a housing that was in our PUD. None of us are qualified to do that individually, and we need the help with this. I think this is money well invested. I think it'll come back and pay us back someday.
White.
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Dunham. Yes. Larson.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Needham.
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Carries.
Welcome aboard, Ms. Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Yes, definitely. And Housing North is going to be working with the Housing Committee and she will make herself available so that we can get things moving as quickly as possible. During our discussion the other day, we found out that we're on the right page for a lot of things, and we already have moved forward in the right direction. But I think your expertise is really going to grab the wheel for us and steer us exactly where we need to go, and I appreciate your help. I authorize sale of the village holder. Sir, what's a village holder?
The holder is the manufacturer of our so-called sidewalk machines. They body articulated, four-wheel drive, maintenance nightmare.
Why is it a maintenance nightmare, sir?
Well, it's meant to blow snow off sidewalks, but it spends most of its time broken down.
And how long does it take you to park for that, sir?
Oh, roughly 155 years.
It's about right.
I might exaggerate it.
No, but
Someone needs it for parts somewhere.
I'm sure they
In our
do.
great nation,
I'm
and
sure they
actually
do.
someone did buy it for parts. We'll be replacing it. We'll revisit that.
So I would take a motion to authorize that sale.
I would be glad to authorize a sale of the village holder.
I'll second.
Anybody have any questions?
Is that the German engineering one?
It is. It's
And-
that one that if you order a part, you might get it, you might not.
Yes.
And if
Being
you
a German
do,
myself, I appreciate the engineering and an engineer, but we need to know.
It's,
tickets flying back and forth. Okay.
There are better machines available.
Anyway, that'll be $20,000 that we can reinvest into something a little more. We have a roll call on that, please.
Yes. Bishop,
yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. President, would it be appropriate before you adjourn, we need to ask our staff sergeants, our family, to come back up and stand at the table and have their families surround them?
I think it would. Please come forward.
And I'd like families to come forward and surround your staff sergeants, please. Go ahead.
I'll just say photo op.
So, families, why don't you identify yourselves? Start at the far right.
I'm Jimmy Argyle, this one right from this one.
Hudson Argyle.
Are you baby brother or older brother?
Me, I'm the younger brother.
You're the baby
The
brother.
youngest.
Okay, that seems odd, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the younger, bigger one.
I am Mandy Clark. I am Scott's wife. I am Diane Daniels. Scott's my son-in-law.
Marty Daver. Godson.
Mandy's father.
Sign up there for a second.
Great. I was getting a little confused there.
That's correct.
Good job. Reception immediately following for our staff sergeants and their families. Be sure to thank the families as well. Great. Thank you very much.
Before we adjourn, we have room for another brief public comment from anybody who wishes. All right, we are adjourned. Oh, yes.
I just want to say thank you to Cody for coming to help cleaning up on the fifth, and Elizabeth for being there and taking over with the child that probably did not want to clean, but had fun doing it. I just wanted to say thank you to both of you.
Great, and that was for the park.
Yep. the partner thing.
Go Parks and Rec.
All right, no other comments. We will adjourn.
You do.
I'll go to the house. Oh, because I just was. Okay. Oh, is it? Okay. Well, I was gonna say.